name's Christine, and today we're going over the basics of ironing, pressing, and steaming, because not only is it important to know the difference between ironing, pressing, and steaming if you sew a lot, but using an iron is still a very prevalent aspect of home economics today. A standard iron will have a plug and a red light that turns on to let you know the iron is hot. When you plug your iron in, the plate will get hot, so make sure you don't touch it with your fingers and always set it down pointing away from you. Set your temperature gauge depending on the fabric you are using. Natural fibers such as cotton and linen can take a much higher heat than synthetic fibers such as polyester. And if you use too hot of heat on synthetic fabrics, you will melt them. Most irons also have a chamber to pour water into. Your iron will boil the water on the inside, and it will come out of the plate as steam or out of the front as a spray. Some irons will have a button to use the spray and the steam, and some will not. If your iron does not have a spray or steam function, you can always use a squirt bottle to spray your fabric first and then iron over the top of it. Most irons are capable of ironing, pressing, and steaming fabric, but there are differences between iron to iron. And this is a pretty standard iron, but there are a lot more fancy options out there if you want to spend a lot of money on an iron. This is also a standard ironing board. It has a metal stand with holes in it for the steam to go through, a layer of foam for padding, and a top made out of 100% cotton that will stand up to the highest heat of the iron. And you can use a towel laid over a table or a counter in place of an ironing board, but just be a little bit careful because not all tables can handle the heat. Ironing is a horizontal movement, mainly used to get wrinkles out of clothing that is already made. Using the spray and steam functions are very useful in getting out stubborn wrinkles. When you're ironing clothing, make sure you don't hit the buttons with your iron because they will melt. And pay special attention to cuffs and collars. And don't forget to remove collar stays. And many articles of clothing, such as men's dress shirts and pants, will have natural creased lines that you need to follow with your iron. And you can use the nose end of your ironing board to get to hard to reach places such as sleeves and pant legs. Pressing is a vertical movement used to set seams and polish your work while you are sewing something together, such as a quilt top. When you press fabric, you press down, lift your iron up, move it over, and press down again. This movement will avoid stretching your fabric out the way ironing does. You also want to use a dry iron for pressing, meaning you don't fill it with water, because adding steam or water to your fabric while pressing it can cause it to shrink. It's important that your fabric does not shrink or stretch while sewing it so that your seams line up at all the right points. You can press seams to one side or you can press them open. Press seams open by laying your fabric flat and opening the seam with your iron. And you can use a metal knitting needle here so you don't burn yourself. Press seams to one side by first setting them with your iron from the inside, then pressing your fabric open from the outside. And when you need to press a particularly curved seam, such as an armscye or a princess seam, you can use a tailor's ham to better access that curved area. A tailor's ham is a round pillow about the same size and shape as this crab. One side will be made out of cotton or linen, and the other side will be made out of wool, and that will help with your more slippery fabrics such as satin, silk, or organza. And you can press or iron with a tailor's ham the same way you would with your ironing board. Just don't use an actual stuffed animal like this crab because you will destroy the fabric. Steaming uses hot water vapor to remove wrinkles from cloth. Now, while you can use steam while you're ironing or pressing, you can also use steam vertically using an iron or a steamer. Much of women's formal wear and dresses should be hung up and steamed from a few inches away to remove wrinkles. Now, there are some fabrics that will be completely destroyed by an iron, whether you iron, press, or steam it, because the heat itself will destroy the fabric. That includes fabric with metallic threads, such as this sweater, fabric with a crepe effect, such as this skirt, or anything with an applique, such as these leggings. Your underwear and socks also should not be ironed because the heat will break down the elastic in them. There are also materials such as lace and velvet that you can use an iron on, but you have to take special precautions with. When ironing lace, you should always use a pressing cloth made of cotton or linen. Lay this over the lace and iron on top of the pressing cloth so the iron does not come into contact with the lace. You should use a pressing cloth with most formal wear fabrics, and you can also use a pressing cloth anytime you want, such as for quilt blocks. You can use the pressing cloth to protect your fabric from the iron and to protect your iron from the fabric. It's best to iron fabric from the inside rather than the outside so you don't accidentally burn or melt the outside of your fabric. But there are certain fabrics that have a pile or vertical threads, such as velvet, corduroy, or plush fabrics such as this crab are made out of, that you don't want to put an iron on the outside of the fabric at all. So to use an iron on a fabric with piles such as velvet, turn it to the inside. Lightly hold your iron just above your fabric and don't let gravity pull that iron down and crush it. And use steam to set in your seams and remove wrinkles. You can also hang these materials up in your bathroom when you take a shower, and the steam from the shower will help remove wrinkles. And while ironing out wrinkles in the clothing you wear every day will just make you look nicer and put together in general, it is more important to know how to use an iron for pressing seams while sewing. Nice crisp pleats are only achieved if you press your seams while sewing your clothing together. And properly ironed seams not only look more professional, but they're also more comfortable to wear and easier to sew because your fabric isn't going to fight with you as much and it will be much easier to pin. And setting your seams while quilting is especially important so you avoid twisting your seams underneath your quilt top. Well, that covers your ironing basics. Now you know the difference between ironing, pressing, and steaming. But since you can use an iron for all three of them, and you can steam while you iron or steam while you press, it's no wonder people get them confused. And sometimes I get lazy and iron my seams when I should be pressing them, but I think we all do that sometimes. Well, I hope you better understand how to use an iron for what you need it for, so let me know down in the comments if I taught you anything today. Please leave a like on this video if you haven't already, and subscribe to my channel so you can watch a bunch of fun videos on how to make some cool stuff with your iron. As always, thank you for watching my video, and I will see you guys next week.